Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
The reality is, guys prefer naturals. And if it's natural body wash you're looking for, Dr. Squatch has got you Natural Kings covered. The ingredients, naturals. Scent options, naturals. Around-the-clock moisturization, naturally. Now available in-store and online at drsquatch.com. Dr. Squatch Body Wash, for men who prefer natural.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Slashers, huh? What's your favorite scary movie?
Not that one.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking pre-code sexual innuendos. We're talking clan costumes, question mark? And we're talking, when you hear the tone of the gong, it will be exactly 12 o'clock and 6 split seconds. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking, I know, but this is a good murder.
So many good murders in this movie.
Oh my God, so many good murders in a not good movie.
Ooh, coming in hot.
Everyone, we are discussing Albert Ray's The 13th Guest from 1932. Make sure you're not watching the one from the 40s.
Correct, yes.
But oh my God, Joe, I was out of my element with this because I was watching this and I was like, I think this is a bad movie, but I don't watch enough movies from the 30s to like have a point of reference.
I mean, sir, we watched a bunch of like Universal Monsters and some other ones. Like, part of this is this one just feels a little bit cheap and a little bit quickly made.
I love that you're like, oh yeah, the Universal Monsters. Oh, yeah, but that's like 8 movies. So total, like whatever, it's fine. Oh boy, but yeah, no, this was a treat because I mean it's really funny, and I think in some ways intentionally, and in some ways unintentionally.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that the distance in terms of like, oh, we're talking about a movie that's like 90 years old at this point. Yeah, there's some things that don't quite land. We just don't make movies this way in a certain fashion. But overall, I mean, it's also hard to go wrong with a 68-minute movie.
Oh my God, I know. Like, I saw that runtime and I was like, hello, jackpot! Mm-hmm. Okay, well, why don't we bring in our expert, though? Because I think we're going to need some help with this, Joe. All right, everyone. She is a queer Brooklyn-based screenwriter and actor who is the co-writer and co-lead of Perfectly Good Moment, a psychosexual revenge thriller about a toxic age gap relationship that is now available on VOD. She is also the co-host of Don't Be Crazy, a podcast that discusses what makes certain movies good or bad. And you may also remember her from our episode on The Picture of Dorian Gray from last year. Please welcome back Amanda Jane Stern.
Hello. I would also like to add, and we're talking, she'll be safer in jail. Which so does not age well. But,
oh boy.
Trace, to your point about this being just not a good movie, I do watch a million of these, 1920s, 1930s, pre-code. Mm-hmm. I watch so many. Yeah, this is not a good one.
Okay.
You're not. There's a lot wrong with the production of this. I seek these out. I have a list, and I'm sure I'll get into how I actually came across this one in the first place. But no, this is not the upper echelon of these movies.
I think it's one of those things where sometimes my brain just defaults like, well, if it's old, it must be good, and that is not the case.
It's not always the case. But, no.
Okay, well, so everyone peek behind the curtain because Amanda, we had originally programmed Peter Jackson's Heavenly Creatures in this slot, but unfortunately, it was unavailable to stream everywhere, and the Blu-ray was out of print. But thankfully, you let us know that before we had to record this tonight.
Right.
But I'm curious, Amanda, because you suggested this as the replacement, and I am dying to know why this movie.
So as you know, I watch a lot of old fucking movies.
Yeah.
And it's always really interesting. Obviously, this is pre-code. I've talked to you guys a lot about pre-code, which is when the rules there were none. The Hays Code, which was what was in place before the MPAA ratings,
right,
didn't get enacted until 1934. It existed. It was written in 1930, but the studio didn't give a shit. So nobody was enacting these things. And so you get this period of movies from 30 to 33 that are just balls to the walls, whatever they will do. And what's interesting, obviously, you've got the Depression going on, and you have a lot of movies about women climbing their way to the top by sleeping their way to the top. And that was actually like the moral of those movies.
Right.
So you get things like Babyface. But then you get a lot of these horror murder mystery comedies. And they made so many of these. And most of these did end up getting remade in the Code era.
Right.
This one got remade. And the remake is actually considered worse.
Oh,
so take that. Yeah, I know.
Okay. I saw that in some of like the research that I saw, and I was like, really? Okay. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of curious to see it now.
I am too. I am as well. And so I found this a couple years ago just because I have a personal obsession with old dark house movies. Yes, named after the old dark house, even though this isn't fully one of those. And the genre is named after that, but the genre actually started in 1927 with a silent movie called The Cat and the Canary. That is the definitive beginning of the old dark house genre. It's people trapped in a house for a set period of time. There's a will, you survive and you'll inherit this. And then people start getting picked off one by one. It's also considered a proto-slasher, even though no one actually gets slashed in that. And it takes a few years for people to actually start getting picked off in these movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting because you had actually mentioned that was the other title that we could consider, but you said that this one was a little bit easier to track down and that it might just be something different for us to discuss. So I think that's why we ended up picking this one over that.
It's also a little more accessible because it's a talkie and that's a silent film.
Right.
Yeah. But no, that is the definitive start of the old dark house genre. And I, as I said, love them. So I went down this rabbit hole where I started tracking basically everything from that time period that was sort of in that vein, and that kind of extends to the locked room murder mystery. And this is tiptoeing on the old dark house because your centerpiece is an old dark house. Of course, in a traditional old dark house, nobody would ever leave the house. They'd be there for basically the entirety of the movie until you catch the killer. And then what's so interesting about this is I remember when I watched it a couple years ago, the character of the brother and then the friend are so it is so overt that they live together. Why does the brother just have like the most beautiful picture of the other guy in their shared apartment that, as far as we can see, is only a 1-bedroom, and no one is sleeping on the couch there? And there's even a scene where they're referred to as boyfriends. Now,
and there's no pause. Yeah. It's not boyfriend. No. It's like your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Right. And like I know of straight women referring to their friends as my girlfriends.
Yeah, but men always don't do that.
Exactly. That's never been a thing with guys. And no, they full on just say, what about the brother and his boyfriend? I think they're swell guys.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think there's another version of this movie too where because we have the boyfriend as like kind of part
sort of a villain.
Yeah, sort of a villain. But there's another version of this, if this ever got remade or updated to modern times, where it's the brother and his boyfriend doing it to go run off together.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And this is based on a book, so I don't know what, because obviously in literature you could push things further than movies could.
Yeah, but do you think they could go that far at this time?
No, probably not.
Yeah, because the book would have been published. It was 1928, so it was only 4 years before this. But I mean, again,
I doubt it. But then again, Morris came out. What year did Morris come out? The book, because that's an E.M. Forster, so it was written, early 1900s. And it came out.
I know, I'm sure.
Didn't get published until he was dead in 1971. Never mind. Never mind.
We hated the gays back then. That's all we did.
I mean, the reality is, and folks, if you've forgotten about the pre-code stuff, we do have a couple of older episodes where you can go back and listen to a primer on this. I think actually the Old Dark House is one of the times that we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, you did Old Dark House, and you've got Invisible Man, and that's a pre-code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but essentially what it means is it's a decency and morals act. So that's why, Amanda, you reference the MPA, because they would eventually take over and be like, hey, no gay shit. Hey, make sure that it's all, happily ever after except for certain types of people. So it's about who gets punished and what you can show people getting away with. But particularly things around sex and violence were quite taboo. But all the movies before that, you can get away with a lot.
It's specifically based on Catholic morality. That's what, it was created by the Catholic League.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but this movie does not apply to that because, of course, as you said, it was in place, but they weren't really caring about it. So this movie tiptoes around that line. So, people don't get punished for their outlandish or bad behavior.
Actually, Amanda, do you know? So, okay, do you know what made the studios start caring about the code then?
Yeah. Okay. I'm digging back into my college degree here. But it has to do with the U.S. government kind of cracking down and saying, we will censor your movies. And Hollywood saying, no, we'll do it ourselves. We'll do it ourselves.
Yeah. It's either you can do it or we will do it, and you will not like it if the U.S. government does it.
And that was the initial thing in 1930. They're like, see, we made it. Yay. We
totally
just
not
don't care.
actually doing anything with it.
Lyle Talbot, who's in this movie, has a great quote actually about what it was like to be a Hollywood star in the 30s. He was like, everyone was sleeping with everyone. It was the horniest place.
That's because he's the only name that I recognize because
not Ginger Rogers.
Well, I'm sorry. Oh my god, I'm sorry. He's the only He's the only other name outside of Ginger Rogers that I recognize. Although, Amanda, you might be surprised. I don't think I've ever seen a Ginger Rogers movie before.
What?
Really? No, none of, I've never seen one of those. I don't think I've seen a Fred Astaire movie either. Nope. Okay. Definitely not seen that. Nope.
Well, if you have, because those are all code movies, one thing you'll realize is there are all these beautiful dance scenes, and then something happens, and the romantic couple gets in a fight, and you're like, what are they fighting over? Yeah, that dance is a symbol for sex. Yeah. Very much so. It's really interesting when you're in college classes and that's what your professor is saying. They're like, why are they having a fight as if something happens? All they did was dance.
Yeah. They be fucking.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like how in musicals, the musical numbers are advancing the plot, or they're telling you about the character relationships. And people are like, oh, why can't we just skip ahead? This doesn't contribute anything. It's the same thing with the dance sequences, right? It's like, okay, well, this is telling you about the stage of a character's relationship with somebody else.
Okay, we cannot get onto a musical bit because I will go on about how about the modern audience's perception of musicals.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. We can move on.
I went to musical theater camp, so.
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm just okay. Let me go through this production really quickly because there actually wasn't a ton of information about this available, and I don't think there was a solo a Blu-ray dedicated to this film. The one I found, it was in a pack with 8 other films. So
yeah.
Okay, so this movie is based on Armitage Trail's 1928 novel of the same name. Now, Trail's real name, by the way, was Maurice Coons, and he is best known for writing the novel Scarface, which was published 2 years after this in 1930. Weirdly enough, though, Scarface was published in 1930, the same year this man died at the age of 28 from heart failure.
Ooh.
It was a different time. People died early.
Ooh.
So the 13th Guest was his only other significant work. Again, he was 28. Out of curiosity, Amanda, have you ever heard of Bayard Veyer's play, The 13th Chair, which was also adapted into a couple movies?
I have, yes.
Okay, do you know if there's any kind of inspiration from The 13th Chair to The 13th Guest? Because I only asked, so this is weird anecdote for me, but The 13th Chair was the very, very, very first play I ever acted in high school. But that play came out in 1916. It had a silent film adaptation in 1919, and then a film adaptation the year after the novel of The 13th Guest would have been published. But we say The 13th Chair quite frequently in this movie, so I didn't know if it was a reference at all.
Probably not, to be perfectly honest. It's I think 13 just because of the number 13 and the connotations around it.
Right.
And then genre-wise, this is just such a popular genre for the time. There are so many of these movies. You know, you get this, you get Secret of the Blue Room, which then gets remade a million times into Mystery of the Blue Room and Murder in the Blue Room. You have The Cat and the Canary, which is the silent film that then gets remade as a pre-code movie and then gets remade in the code era. It's just a genre that they really go with all the time.
Actually, you know what? I just like as a fun PSA, this is such an interesting niche kind of thing because I'm just thinking of how many people complain when we get a very quick remake. Like I'm thinking of the hubbub around, you know, something like Speak No Evil. And obviously there's the foreign to English language issue there. But just like when people say, oh my God, why do we need another Spider-Man movie? And it's like, well, we were doing this back in the 20s and 30s as well. Like anytime there was a popular movie, they would often remake it, like especially silent to sound and then pre-code to code.
Oh yeah, we've got two. The Lodgers, the original, is a silent Hitchcock movie, and then you got the one that is a dialogue version, and I think that might be the early 40s, so it is in the code that got remade. Everything got remade. Yeah. Which is, and I remember when we were messaging about this, I said specifically the one from 32.
Don't watch the wrong one.
The other one.
Okay, so The 13th Guest was directed by Albert Ray, and again, yes, stars Ginger Rogers. This was pretty early in her career, I think. She doesn't make much of an impression in this movie, despite being the lead.
I mean, it's not a well-written part.
No, it's weird. She's almost the instigator of a lot of things, but then she frequently just disappears for long stretches.
Yeah, well, is it her or is it her double?
Well, I will say that part got me.
It's a cool idea.
We can talk about whether it makes sense or not.
No, not at all.
I was really confused. I'm telling you, okay, I watched this movie twice, well, 2.5 times, because I was really confused by the resolution of this movie.
Yeah, it makes no sense. None of the plots make any sense.
It doesn't,
really.
Which is weird, considering it's, again, an hour and 8 minutes long. But, okay. So this is released on August 9th of 1932 so apparently it was a box office success. I really don't have numbers for this because, you know, we don't have box office tracking for back then. I do know that Variety called it a positive moneymaker, whatever that means. But like, okay, Ginger Rogers starred in 73 movies between 1930 and 1965. And of those 73 films, the New York Times didn't review 5 of them. The 13th Guest is one of those 5 films.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And you know, it's odd, too, because we have another case here of copyright issues. So the original copyright holder for The 13th Guest failed to renew its copyright, resulting in it falling into the public domain, meaning, again, you know, virtually anyone can duplicate or sell a VHS or DVD copy of it. So many versions of the film that are available on the market are either severely and usually badly edited and or of extremely poor quality, having been dumped from second or third generation copies of the film. So everyone, if you are watching this, there are a couple different, they're all the same version, but like not like the same picture quality.
Yeah. Like we watched a copy on YouTube, and yes, it is a 1932 film, so the sound is occasionally not as good as you would maybe hope for. But then there's also a colorized version on Tubi, which is a complete which is a complete terrible piece of shit.
Well, and so that's what I was going to say. So I watched this twice. I watched the YouTube black and white cut first. And then, but because I went to the Tubi version first and I was like, oh, this isn't right. So
you warned me. Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah. And so, but for my second viewing, I was like, you know what? I want to see just what this colorized version looks like. And I don't know who does this, or if it's maybe AI that does it, or if Tubi just has a software that's like, hey, colorize these old black and white movies for us before we upload them. It is horrifying. Like, they look like cartoons some of the time, or like, you know, like Richard Linklater's adaptation of A Scanner Darkly, where it's like, you know, they're drawing over live action. That's what it looks like. But then there are some truly horrific moments where if a character opens their mouth too wide, then they just have teeth that cover the bottom half of their face. And but then they flip in and out depending on how open the character's mouth. I mean, y'all, I wouldn't recommend watching this to actually, like, quote unquote, enjoy the movie. But if you want to see some freaky shit, watch that colorized version on Tubi.
Jesus.
Well, I heard isn't currently the only version of Nosferatu that's available on Amazon with AI art and colorized, which is not how it should be watched.
Like the original silent
the
film?
silent film, which is a black and white movie. And there were definitely silent films where they would colorize specific scenes. Actually, the Cat and the Canary, which I mentioned earlier, does have specific scenes that were hand tinted.
That's different, though.
That's how they would colorize things in these black and white movies. It would be a process where they would hand tint it. It would all be one color, and it was being done for a specific effect.
Well, nevertheless, it was a journey for me. And it still didn't allow me to understand the movie any more than I didn't already. But
well, coloring isn't going to help ease up the plot holes,
it's the script. Yeah, it's the script.
I was hoping it would like trick my brain into understanding it. But it's just a bad script. But
it makes no sense. It is complete nonsense.
But yeah, and I mean, again, because it's not really considered like a great film, I don't know if we're ever going to get like, some kind of remaster of this film.
Probably not.
No.
Nevertheless, as we've already said, this was readapted in 1943 in William Bodine's film, The Mystery of the 13th Guest. And in that film, the 13th is stylized to 13th.
Ooh.
That's all I have for y'all.
Okay. Well, let's try to make our way through. And maybe what we could do is not just point out the gaps in this plot, but if we have suggestions about how they might have strengthened some of this, because I do think there's a couple of pretty easy fixes.
I agree. And I think that there's an idea here. And I definitely have a lot of ideas of what could have been done to help this out.
Do you think part of it's just like lack of skill on the director Albert Ray's part, or do you think it's because we're also like churning out movies nonstop at this time?
Yeah.
I really think it's the script of this one.
I agree. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I do think certain parts of this aren't shot super well. But again, I also don't know if that's the 1932-ness of it. Like when Marie first goes into the house, it is so fucking dark. I can't see a goddamn thing. And I'm like, I think there's a man in there with her, but I can't be certain.
And I think that's just because it's such an old movie. This has not been remastered. So if we got a good remastered version, you'd see it a lot more. I think when it originally came out, you were able to see that.
Maybe on the big screen with a better projection.
And that's the thing. I think I wasn't ever quite sure if I was watching something that was quote unquote legitimately bad, or if it was just something that was it hasn't aged well because it's old as fuck and there hasn't been a remaster done. But I mean, there are also parts of this movie where like someone will say a line and the person who's meant to reply to them waits like a full 5 seconds before actually replying to them, and they're not thinking. They're just like.
They're waiting.
There are so many movies from this exact time period and year. Old Dark House is this year that are significantly better. But you're right. They were churning out movies. Lyle Talbot has a quote about how he'd be riding his bike between sets with 3 scripts in the front and 3 scripts in the back. And you just go script. No wonder he was a founding member of the Screen Actors Guild.
There we go. Let's get some unions in here so we can just make sure that people are working safely and with normal hours.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
Okay, well, let's begin. So we're introduced, we won't learn her name for a little bit, but we begin the film with Marie Morgan, who was played by Ginger Rogers.
But this is Marie, right? This is not the double.
Yes. This is Marie, yes.
Okay.
So she goes into a house after asking a cab driver, who is played by Harry Tenbrook, to wait outside. So we don't know it yet, but this is actually the old Morgan home. So no one has been here in quite some time. She struggles to get inside. She does have a flashlight because she's pretty certain that there's no electricity in this house. And everything is covered in cobwebs except for the phone. Hint, hint.
Oh, yeah. We get a huge zoom in on this phone. And again, took me that second. I know we say people get electrocuted in this movie, but I was like, why are we zooming in on this phone?
It's, yes. Right off the top, things that don't entirely make sense, but, seem like a fun narrative device.
It's an interesting way to kill people.
Sure.
It absolutely is.
Okay, so speaking of the phone, Marie does use it so that she can ask the operator to ask, why is there a fucking phone in this house? Because it has been dormant for 13 years. Also, why is there electricity in the house? There's not meant to be. So Marie has lots of questions, but she's told by this operator, because it's the middle of the night, bitch, I don't know. You're going to have to wait.
Literally, but she kind of says it like this, is how she answers the phone.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
I had to, I did not look this up, and it's actually hard to track credits for a lot of the secondary or tertiary performers in this film. This woman's voice sounds so much like the woman from Singing in the Rain.
Yes.
I don't think it's her, but I was just like, is this a voice that people were doing?
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I've heard a voice like this many times in a lot of these old movies, actually.
Okay. You know what? Great for them for breaking into movies then. Okay. So, yes. After discovering that there is electricity, which means she can more easily read, she pulls out this letter that has brought her to the house, and it's a letter for her 21st birthday, and the note inside simply reads 13, 13, 13. And then this is where she flashes back to a dinner party from 13 years earlier. So I'm only going to talk about the relevant characters, because this movie presupposes that the dinner party had 13 guests, 12 actual bodies, and 1 empty chair. But the movie that follows will not address most of these characters.
Yeah, there's several missing ones.
Honestly, yeah, they should have called it the 7th guest and just had 6 people. And then this flashback, which it is a flashback, but it's really just a 360-degree spin as we look at every single person's face at this table.
Yes, indeed. So I'm going to suggest that this is the first mistake that the screenplay makes. And Trace, what you offered was, I think, the much easier way to do this. Like, if you're not going to develop 13 characters or even reference 13 characters, don't just have a fucking title.
So we meet 7 who are alive, and then we know of 2 who are dead. The one who died 13 years ago and the lawyer who dies in the movie. So I guess we have 9 people we actually learn of.
Wait, because the one who died 13 years ago is the father. Is the mother also dead?
No, the mother is in here.
She is? No, that's the aunt.
Oh, sorry. You're right. Yeah. So the aunt is referenced, but then we hear that the will was meant to take care of her, but I don't remember them ever saying that she's dead. We just don't ever bring her up.
My assumption is that, because when we do actually meet people, we meet 7 living people and we see 1 dead guy. So that means there are 3 people we don't know of. One of them they do mention, it's an uncle, and they say specifically that he is visiting the brothels in Japan.
But he's also the one who dies, right?
No.
Where we just see the hand holding the phone.
That's the lawyer.
Yeah, the lawyer Barksdale dies. Uncle William
I'm talking about the later one, folks. Because there's a second body that drops.
Oh, but we don't know who that is, do we?
We don't know who that is.
Don't they say that that's the missing uncle?
Oh, was it?
I thought so.
Maybe.
All I remember is them calling this asshole detective to be like, you gotta come back. We got another body.
Okay.
Maybe.
Folks, if it sounds like, oh, wow, these three could not get their shit together for this episode.
That's how confusing this movie
is. It's not us.
No.
Oh, my God.
Joe, I think you're right. I think it is the uncle who they said was visiting sex workers in Japan.
Yeah.
And then we have two people who I guess it's the mother and I don't remember.
It's mother and one of the other women. I think it's like
they must be dead.
There's an Aunt Lucille and an Aunt Joan.
Okay. So it's the mom and Aunt Lucille who just must be dead.
But then there's, so Uncle John Adams, that's the murderer, but then there's also an Uncle Dick and an Uncle Wayne. And Wayne is the one who's supposed to be in the brothel in Japan, but he's the one that we think is dead at the second body?
Yes.
Uncle Dick is the businessman who's like very
also
loud.
A dick.
Okay. Oh my God.
Okay, hang on. Let's take a moment and I'll just introduce people so we can at least try to give them like some distinguishing characteristics for folks who are maybe trying to follow along. So we've got the family lawyer, who is John Barksdale. He is played by Robert Klein. We've got Uncle John Adams. Just picture a man with a very evil-looking old face.
He looks like a Mr. Barksdale, but with slightly more hair.
He looks like the petrified David Cronenberg.
Yes, actually, that, you know what, very helpful. So he is played by Ervil Anderson. Okay, there's like kids, but the child actors are not credited, so we'll get to them when we touch on them as adults. We have Marjorie, who I'm going to say is the best character in the film, and she will eventually be played by Francis Rich. We have Uncle Dick, who is a prominent, slightly larger businessman, who is played by Philip Smalley. We have Aunt Jane, who is, I don't know, she's just kind of like repressed and not super interesting, but she's like the older looking lady when we get to her, and she's played by Ethel Wales.
And I think Jane and Dick are Marjorie's parents.
Yeah, that would make sense because Jane has a bit of a bitch inside of her as well.
Yeah, that's a family unit. Those are the parents.
There we go. Yes. So then we also have the other kids at the table. So obviously Marie is one of the kids and she's sitting next to her father. And then she has a brother named Harold, and then Harold's friend who will eventually become his boyfriend, who is Thor.
Thor. Yeah.
Okay. Names. Okay, so yeah, that's the people that you need to know. And if you were like, I didn't keep track of any of that.
Neither did the movie.
Yeah, the movie does not do that. I mean,
no.
Yeah.
And Trace, you're right. It should have just been, 7 or 9. And obviously they went with 13 because of the number 13.
For sure.
It's too many people.
Well, but I get it. We don't have... Amanda, you said, these murder mysteries are really popular at the time. And I know throughout the 20s, Agatha Christie's like really releasing a lot of her novels, but that we don't kill 11 of these people. It's like, why have 13 of them? And I get it. It's just the number, but it's like, y'all.
Well, it is a lot. Most of them are not this many. It is usually like 6 to 8 people. I think the Cat and the Canary is like 6 people. That's usually what they're stuck around, so that one of these people is a murderer. At least one of these people will probably die during the course of this movie. And as it gets, further along, we start to pick off more and more.
Well, and this movie's also not shy about revealing that it is definitely a man who is killing these people. Yeah. So we can pretty much rule out every single woman. And I mean, I guess there is a version of it where it's like, oh, well, because we see these man legs with man pants and man shoes. I was
going to say, it's like Ghostface. It's a woman in platform shoes.
Yeah, I was like, I guess you could say, oh, a woman wore this stuff, but you wouldn't have a woman cross-dressing in 1932.
I mean, in 32, yeah, pre-code.
Pre-code, yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
But, like, the films are probably not going to lean in that direction just yet.
No, they did not.
Okay, as Trace mentioned, the whole purpose of this scene is basically a 360-degree look at who the characters are, and then we come back to the present, and we will eventually come to learn that Marie's father dies after this dinner party because he read his will, and whatever was in the will, or whatever the outcome of that was, sets in motion the rest of the film. But we don't quite understand that just yet. Okay, so she has had this flashback because she looked at the letter, and then she hears a noise in the other room. So she goes to investigate, and we stay in this room, so we just hear a scream and a shot from off screen, and then the cab driver
hightails it out of there. It's like, nope.
Yeah. And we will come to learn that he does report it to the police, but at the moment it just seems like, oh, okay, this guy's a coward. He just hightailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's meet our most prominent police officer. This would be Captain Ryan, who is played by J. Farrell McDonald. And he calls in help from private investigator Phil Winston, who is our protagonist, played by Lyle Talbot.
It's his nephew as well.
Okay, because I was sitting there like, is it common practice for like police officers to call in a private investigator?
No, absolutely not. And not even in movies of this genre that involve private investigators. Usually there's maybe a copacetic relationship where they're working completely separately or the cops hate the PI. In this case, the PI is taking...
He's so rude to his uncle. He doesn't even want to answer the phone. He doesn't want to do his job half the time.
We have to remember, Trace, this is where the comedy is coming in. Like, we're supposed to find this guy a lovable scoundrel, but this does not play super, super well. Like, I think one of my biggest challenges with this film is that I wanted it to have the smartness and the savviness of something like The Thin Man, where it's a husband and wife detective group, and they basically just get day drunk and solve murder mysteries.
I love the Thin Man series. That is one of my favorite. Actually, that's really interesting because the first Thin Man movie is pre-code. And the second one is during the Hays Code, and you can see the changes that had to be made in between what they could do in the original and what they couldn't in the following sequels. I'm a big Myrna Loy, William Powell fan, so, that's, I'm sure, good. Not surprising.
No, but it's one of those things where this movie looks real bad in comparison, if that's the kind of vibe that you're hoping for. So I will admit I struggled with my expectations, but that was the sort of aura that I was kind of getting from this guy. Is like, oh, okay, he's somebody operating outside of the law, but he still is involved in investigations, but he is obviously a Lothario because he's just fucking a bunch of women. He's not afraid to drink. He's not afraid to put rich people in jail. So it's very much, ooh, he's the guy who's operating outside the law.
Yeah, he is very much so supposed to be in the oeuvre of, the Thin Man, a Philo Vance, a Sam Spade, a Philip Marlowe, but he is not.
Well, maybe people in the 30s found him charming, like just a lovable rapscallion.
I mean, I'll confess, I didn't find him that bad. I just didn't feel like he was quite suave enough. Like, it felt like the performance wasn't 100% there.
And again, they did, the first Thin Man movie was a pre-code film, so it would have come out around the exact same time.
Yeah, so you could have pushed this harder.
Yeah, but also in The Thin Man, she's an amazing part.
Well, yeah.
Exactly, that's the thing. It's the two of them. It's the banter. They're going toe-to-toe the entire time. And Ginger Rogers doesn't get that.
No, this is such an underwritten part.
Which is interesting since she does play two roles in the film, and neither one of them is written very well.
Well, she just looks great in a mink, though, doesn't she?
I mean, we never really meet the second part she plays.
No, that is true, actually. Yeah, I realize we just know about the body.
We only see her body,
Yeah. Okay, so, we're still being introduced to Winston. I do like this creative decision to frame it as we're not showing what Talbot looks like right off the bat. It's just a hand lifting the receiver, not wanting to engage with Captain Ryan, so he just hangs it back up. And then, we've got this woman who answers, and she does the time joke. Haha, it's very funny. But eventually we do learn, okay, hey, there's been a murder at this place.
But it's a good murder.
It's a good murder because it's going to be good for Winston because he's going to be able to solve it.
Because the cops count.
Yeah.
They know a lot about this party from 13 years ago, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. It's like it almost needed more spectacle if we were going to say everybody still remembers this 13 years later.
Why does Winston not know this party then? He would have been alive 13 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, this should have been the big... I mean, obviously, the Morgan family is super rich. The mysterious death of a family patriarch that has, a mansion on the hill. And and only the one cop remembers this? That does not make... And that goes, you're right, again, to things that could have been done to fix this a little bit.
Yeah, beef up this family legacy, you know, especially when they are so rich and powerful. It's like, oh, well, this is the incentive for calling Winston in. We need all hands on deck because we got to solve this immediately.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the hook is that they have discovered a body in the old house and it belongs to Marie. And she is sitting in what would have been the empty 13th chair from the party. So, ooh, maybe this is a hint of who that 13th guest is.
I think she's sitting in what was her chair.
Is it her chair?
Yeah, they all get seated in what was originally their chairs.
That is correct.
Well, because we assume the killer is going down the line in
chronological,
counterclockwise order around the
well,
table.
right, because the guy who sat to her left was her dad, and he died, so he's already dead. And then it's her, and then it's the lawyer.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're going down the line.
And they think John Adams is going to be next because Lucille is dead, and she would have been next if she was alive.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Except, of course, the problem with the film is that it basically ends as soon as we get to the lawyer. So we do 2 deaths in this sequence, and then we just fuck off with all of the rest of the murders or positioning the bodies in the requisite chairs.
Which is actually great. That's a really good beat. The positioning the bodies part.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because it also, when we see the bodies, because they've been electrocuted, they're very stiff. So the body positioning looks super artificial and interesting. And I thought, I can't wait to get more of this.
And see, I think there's also a funnier version of this movie where you do kill more people and they just keep picking up the fucking phone. Even if they've seen someone get electrocuted, they still pick up the phone.
It would be rude otherwise.
And remember, there are 2 phones. There's one that's electrocuting, and then there's another phone that's just a normal phone.
Yes, right. Important to remember. Okay, so Winston enters, and immediately we're introduced to the comic relief, quote unquote, of the film. So we have this dumbass detective Grump, who is played by Paul Hurst. That is literally his name, although I feel like we barely say it until about 3/4 of the way through the film. Yes. This guy is a fucking idiot.
And they do say that he's only on the force because his dad is the police commissioner.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Never meet him, though.
No. Which, to me, it would almost make more sense if Captain Brown was his father, because that's a character we do meet. Mm-hmm. But Captain Brown is not a character, even though he appears in multiple scenes.
No. He's just there to kind of tamp down the police detective who is so aggressive.
Look, I admit that I have face blindness sometimes, but again, with all these cops, I kept getting them confused. From Ryan to Grump to the other guy, I was like, these are just a bunch of old balding white men in police costumes.
Well, that's also because the characters in this are not well fleshed out. And when you do look at other movies of this genre from this era, the characters are significantly more defined. Even in the silent one, The Cat and the Canary, those characters are incredibly well defined and they have such distinct personalities. Here, they're all just bitch. That's it.
I mean, I would argue that Grump is probably the easiest to identify because he serves no plot purpose. He falls asleep, he breaks shit, he stumbles into rooms and so on. So whenever someone is doing something that isn't helping any other characters, that means you're watching Grump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And usually in these movies, the cops are pretty bumbling.
Yeah.
This is an extra level of bumbling.
Yeah. The movie clearly thinks that this is all very funny, and I don't know if it's just that it hasn't aged particularly well, but I feel like I really could have appreciated more slapstick with this character.
You should watch it 3 times, and you'll start. Eventually, you'll wear yourself down to where you just start laughing at it because
maybe if you just watch it on double speed.
Oh, maybe.
And then it's a 34-minute movie.
Speed it all up, baby. Speed it up. Okay, so yes, Winston comes in and Captain Brian catches him up on, we have a phone, we have electricity, it's a mystery, we're tracing calls from the house that were made and so on. We see the body, it looks great.
Well, okay, so but her body is sitting at this table, eyes open, but she doesn't look, she just looks like Ginger Rogers sitting at this table with her eyes open.
Yeah.
I would have loved some Addams Family Values, Debbie Jelinski, electricity hair where it's just
But yeah, this is not a faithful depiction, or an accurate depiction rather, of what electrocution looks like.
No.
Generally, people would be a little bit singed.
just a little fried, charred around the edges.
Important to remember, this movie is obviously very low budget because it would have just been like quickly made, thrown into theaters as the B film on the A double bill. Yeah. So, okay. So Captain Ryan, notes that she was electrocuted. And then this is where we have Detective Grump come in and say, oh, I found this light bulb. I've been trying to plug them into all these different outlets. And Winston goes, well, maybe you shouldn't do that. Okay, so we get notice that the call was traced to the Sound Hotel. So we're going to send Detective Grump over there so he can do some legwork. And this is where Captain Ryan, confirms that he's only on the force because he has an important father. But then when he goes outside to investigate, unfortunately, this is when we discover that Captain Ryan's car has gone missing. So we have a new mystery, folks.
Like, we need one.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So we fade into a meeting with Captain Brown. He's played by William Davidson, and we have brought in Marie's brother. So as an adult, Harold is played by James Eagle, and then his boyfriend is played by Eddie Phillips.
Roommate.
So,
Roommate in a one-bedroom apartment.
Heavy scare quotes on that.
Well, it's interesting because even in this scene, when they come in, Harold introduces Thor as my sister's friend. And we learned that Thor does have a fondness for Marie, when they're reunited.
Yeah, the way your gay brother-in-law does.
Yeah.
They're buddies.
But, this is obviously, we're playing with delivery and word choice in the way that it's like, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, you absolutely understand who these are, right? Because we should note that Harold definitely gives off effeminate vibes.
Yeah, just a little. And I will say it's worse in that colorized version because they like the color version gives him more gay face than he already has.
Oh, okay.
And I will add, for everything that I say about what you could get away with in pre-code, there were still limits, and here is your limit.
Right. Yeah. We're not going to show these characters in bed. We're not going to show them kissing.
God, no.
Although I will say, when they are dismissed after the questioning, so they provide some more exposition about Barksdale, particularly, because they realize that's why Marie went to the old house, is that she got a call from Barksdale with the letter, saying, hey, it's your 21st birthday. Go and check out the house, but she didn't elaborate beyond that. So we're asking the brother and the boyfriend about what went on. But even when they leave, we see Thor put his hand on Harold as they exit.
Yeah. It's not subtle at all.
No.
Yeah. I also didn't realize we used the whole Marie is lured to the house by by the killer claiming to be someone else twice in this movie.
Yeah.
Well, John, it really was Barksdale who called her to the house.
Because we learned that Barksdale was in on it with Thor.
It's that there are two different subsets of bad guys. There's the murderer, and then there are these two, and I don't know what their plan was.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can speculate as we get further along.
When we get there, I have ideas, because
it could have been a good plot.
The murderer's plan also makes no sense, but theirs makes even less.
Well, yeah, but I do love that the murderer is hey, so we have the MO of electrocute them, put them on the table, but then it's also laugh hysterically.
Yes, we have a wild laugh when we kill people.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised this movie didn't add in there's an escaped maniac, because a lot of movies of this time period really loved and if this really were an old dark house where they really were trapped in that house, then I would have expected there's an escaped maniac as well. Maybe they're the killer. Oh, no.
Sure. Because it could never be a member of high, polite society.
Well, the answer is actually it's never the alleged escaped maniac. It's one of the high, polite society members pretending.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's Scooby-Doo. These movies are all Scooby-Doo.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so things that we learn from Harold before he leaves is that essentially because Marie went to the house on the date of her 21st birthday, we speculate that it has something to do with the will because she has come of age, which also means that Harold could be next because maybe they're after the family fortune.
Right, because the money goes to the two of them only.
Yes, and the bulk of the remaining money that didn't go to them and their dead mom goes to the mysterious 13th Guest.
I guess I didn't even think about that. So they have one murder on their hands, who the person they think is Marie, and then they automatically are like, oh, okay, it's that party, and we're going around the table to kill these people. Like, after one murder, we figured that out.
I think it's mostly because no one has been in the house since that murder. So it's like, oh, well, they're probably connected because if not, why are we in this place that has been abandoned for so long?
But the dad wasn't murdered. He was sick and knew he was dying and just chose to do it really dramatically.
Well, but don't they reference that? Because I think it's Aunt Jane later who says, like, well, I didn't kill him at that party, which to me implies, oh, maybe there is like suspicion that he was murdered, but we never dip back into that well.
We do say that he knew he was dying. I think he might have sped it along to be dramatic at that party.
Okay.
But we can't say suicide in this movie.
No, but he clearly loved to put on a show.
Yeah.
Yes. Which again, like, I could have used a little bit of Vincent Price, William Castle theatrics in this house as well.
Well, we could have seen some of that party. Actually gotten to know these people in the past. That would have helped a little bit.
Yeah, because quite literally the only time we see the past is that 360 degree.
Well, that's part of the issue of having an old dark house, and it's not really a character in the movie. We only ever really stay in one or two rooms, and we know there are secret passageways because we see our killer in one. And most of the movies of this time period that do the old dark house actually have you exploring the secret passageways and learning the ins and outs. We never do that in this movie.
No, there's no establishing of geography in any shape, way, or form.
And that's part of the love of these movies is, to get into a secret room here, they just bang down a wall. Where is the fun in that?
Right?
I want,
Where's the magic candlestick on the wall?
the book in the library that opens a door. Like, that is part of the enjoyment of these films, and we don't get that.
Well, maybe you can see it as a subversion. Oh no, we're not going to do like what the books do. We're just going to take a sledgehammer and break through the wall.
I think it was just lazy.
Okay, so before Harold and Thor leave, the big thing that Winston asks is give us a seating arrangement map so that we can try to figure out who might be next if that is in fact the case.
Yeah, so these two men who were children at this party have no problem recollecting that.
I mean, neither did she. 12. It was only 12.
Right.
Okay, but she also does it to herself. She's like, that's right, talking to nobody.
Yep.
All right. So this is when a new character of no consequence comes into the film. So we have Detective Carter, who is played by Tom London, who comes in and he says, I figured out who set up the phone as well as the electricity in the house. It comes back to Barksdale, which is the lawyer. So we decided, okay, we know that Marie was summoned there by Barksdale, and he's the person who essentially turned the lights and the phone back on. So he's the person we need to find. So this is where we say, okay, it turns out that he was the person who checked into the Sound Hotel. He made one call and then he checked back out, but he hasn't been seen since. So it's kind of red alert. We put out an APB to all of our officers. And this is when we then go back to the Morgan estate and we get to spend a little bit of time with our killer. And the reason I said off the top that we've got Klansman question mark is because this outfit looks like a black version of a KKK.
Yeah.
It's not great. I did see one funny review of this. There's not a ton of reviews out there and like very few professional reviews. So it's a lot of Letterboxd and Amazon stuff. But I did see one person jokingly say, if this person is hiding all the time in this secret room, why are they in costume?
That's true. That is true.
I guess it's in case the police officers take a sledgehammer and break down the wall to a secret room. So he still has a costume on.
Well, I mean, usually in these movies, the person is in a costume and they have a scary mask so that they could pop out from, weird places behind a painting and have this, like, contorted face so if someone screams or faints.
And that doesn't happen.
Nope.
I mean, presumably it maybe happened when Marie first came out and she saw somebody or something, and then the gun goes off and then she freaks out. But that all happens off screen, so we don't even get the advantage of that.
And there's an interesting reason why it happens off screen, but yes, we don't get this. Yeah.
Okay, so the killer is spying on Barksdale, who is in the house. So we get to see the secret little like space that the killer will open up. And we also see that Grump has been placed there, but he has fallen asleep, which is exactly what Captain Ryan asked him not to do. So the phone rings, and before Barksdale can answer it, Detective Grump actually thinks that he picked it up, but it's actually his gun, and he nearly blows his own fucking head off.
This is...
Ha ha.
Yeah, I was like,
So
okay,
funny.
movie.
And then he immediately goes back to sleep, and then we call again so that this time we can electrocute Barksdale, the lawyer.
Yeah, I marked down in my notes the editing here was a bit weird too, because, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we see him pick up the phone, we see him do the electrocution jig and collapse, but then we hear him scream after that. Or is that meant to be maybe the killer's
It's
laugh?
the killer with the
killer.
weird scream.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. It would help if the scream is weird, but because we're also hearing other people scream, it's not quite distinct enough. Like, it needed to be really odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needed to be unsettling and uncanny. It just sounds like a guy maniacally laughing, kind of.
Well, but it sometimes sounds like he's just screaming, like someone getting murdered.
Yeah,
exactly. So Grump has fled the scene when somebody died. And
because he's such a competent cop.
Exactly. So we're bringing him back only with Captain Ryan as well as Winston. And we get another sort of comedic beat as Winston understands that this guy's a fucking idiot. So he basically says, well, can you recreate this scream for me? And then he asks him to do it again. And I will say, I did find this part funny.
Yep. This is where I laughed as well.
Agreed.
So Captain Ryan obviously doesn't like this and he just shuts it down. That's the end of that part. But we get back to the house and we see that Barksdale's body has been placed in his appropriate chair. So we have a pattern and we have a second dead body now. Okay, so we look at this absolutely perfectly drawn, like professionally drawn seating arrangement that apparently Harold and Thor drew. And yes, we discover, okay, so there is a pattern of behavior. And that means that the killer was somebody who was at the dinner party that night, because only they would have known where people were seated.
You know, it's really stupid of the killer to do this, like going around the table in this direction, because again, the cops figure it out, you're next because you're next in the seating arrangement. Well, when he doesn't die and someone else dies next, they should figure that shit out. He should have gone in the other direction around the table.
Or done them sporadically.
It's also interesting to suppose that everybody who was at this dinner party remembers where everyone else sat.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you folks remember a dinner party that you went to with a limited number of people, but more than 10, and where everyone sat?
I mean, yes. I guess you can say though, well, the dad did, because the dad died at this party, right? Yeah, so maybe you can say, okay, maybe they remember because of that, oh yeah, it's the day that guy died.
I guess.
I do, because I have a weird memory.
Okay.
But I wouldn't expect anyone else to, because it's a weird thing to remember.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. Speaking for myself, I can barely remember the people that were at a party I went to a couple months ago. I mean, so.
but there are very specific things from my childhood that I have like explicit memories of. I mean, obviously, I don't remember everything from my childhood, but there are certain events where I'm like, okay, I can play that memory back in my head, but I don't know. But could that carry over into a seating arrangement at a dinner party? I don't know.
Right, that's so granular.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so let's get to the good part, because I will say I did not anticipate Marie to suddenly turn back up. Surprise, folks. She's not dead.
Did you think Ginger Rogers was basically
the opening
Drew Barrymore? Yeah, the Drew Barrymore of this movie.
I did see a bunch of people reference it. Oh, we were doing it way back in the 30s.
Well, okay, but would Ginger Rogers have been like that much of a name at this point in her career?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. Not until the Fred Astaire movies. This is very, very early. She's 21 here. This is early in her career.
Yeah, because she looks she looks very young. Like,
Yeah.
she's also stunningly gorgeous. Even in not great black and white quality 90 years later, she looks amazing.
You should watch the colorized version on Tubi.
I will not. No, thank you.
No.
Okay, so everyone is obviously very surprised to see her, except for Winston, who kind of immediately pieces things together because he starts looking at her neck.
Oh my God.
And this, I think, is also meant to establish a bit of a flirtatious rapport between the two of them. He's calling her little girl and child, and it is
so sexy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like nothing makes me want to fuck someone faster than when they infantilize and demean me.
I think he calls it, he's like, be a good girl at some point, and I'm like,
I mean, again, you could have a kink for that, but we don't get the impression she's into it.
No, she's pretty annoyed.
Yeah. Oh, he also threatens to spank her if she won't hold still. That was a line I took down from this part.
If that's your kink, sure, but I don't think she's consenting in this
no,
case.
this is just 30s sexism at its finest.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
He's just being a dick for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're incredibly suspicious of this woman who should be dead but has turned back up, and she reveals that she is the one who stole the captain's car, but she is very surprised to see the body of Barksdale, the lawyer. So we end up locking her temporarily in the library because we're not ready to deal with her return yet. And then this is where Winston says, oh, I saw scars on the corpse of Marie. So that's why he was checking her neck, because this is not the same person.
Okay. So, yes, this Winston guy, he's like, okay, so yeah, the body we found was a woman who had plastic surgery to make herself look like Marie.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was completely made over, is the line that he says. And all I could think of was, Amanda, I'm going to need you to help me out. There's a film noir, I want to say, with Humphrey Bogart, where he gets a full face transplant because he has to go on the run for something. And I was just like, man, these older movies were wild with what we thought we could do with cosmetic surgery.
Oh, yeah. No, Dark Passage.
That is it. Thank you. That one's a good movie, but it basically hinges on this ridiculous narrative.
So many of them do, though. So many of them are absolutely bonkers.
So what we've learned is that people thought that they were killing Marie, and they actually killed this woman who had cosmetic surgery to look like Marie. So that is who is dead.
Yep.
Okay.
The cogs are turning in my brain. I'm like, yep, that's what happened.
Yep.
Yeah. So we think, oh, okay, well, it must have been Barksdale. But then we realize, oh, well, if it was Barksdale who wanted to kill her, then why is he now dead? So clearly he is not the murderer.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, good deductive reasoning right there.
Nice detecting. Good job, boys. That's why you get the tax money.
This man is dead.
Truly that. So Marie is locked up in the library, and we see that the killer is trying to make a second go at it. So he calls, and she picks up the phone, but before he can flip the electrocution switch, which, yes, folks, there's literally a switch that we will flick when we want to kill someone in this movie, she is interrupted. And this is because Winston is going to take her to his apartment, where she will be safe.
Sure.
She'd be safer in jail.
Yeah, so that's the line. Everybody knows, like, that doesn't suggest, oh, he's a Lothario, he's going to try to bed you. That suggests he's going to date rape you.
Yeah.
So this is the pre-code. Like, that's a joke, but we're also like, ooh, can't get away with this in a couple years.
Because the only thing we really know about the Winston character is that he is a womanizer. Like, he would choose to not go work on a case so he could fuck the woman he's with on his couch.
Yep.
Which is like, that's a bit of a film noir private investigator kind of trope too, right? So it's not like this is an egregious or unknown character. People would be used to this.
It's the specific phrasing.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not usually implying our protagonists are rapists.
Yeah. It's the she'd be, and he says it twice. It's the, oh boy. And that's obviously not, it's not what he means. He means, like, you're going to take her home and you're going to seduce her. But the way it reads to us is, ooh.
Yeah,
hey,
watch your drink.
Hi, you're a detective. Hi, I have a criminal for you to meet.
Yeah, not great.
No.
Okay, so speaking of criminals, the next person we're introduced to is Uncle Adams, or reintroduced because we did see him ever so briefly at the 360-degree dinner table. So he arrives at Winston's, and we get this funny bit where, you know, can I offer you a drink? Yeah, I'll take a scotch and soda. Easy on the soda, because everybody's a drunk in this movie.
Of course they are.
Yeah. And this is where Marie tells Mr. Adams that he's next, unless he's the killer, which is a very tried and true kind of format for murder mysteries, right? Like, I found a lot of the time, if you want to know who the killer is, it's one of the first couple of characters that you'll meet, and then we will make a reference to the fact that they're a killer before we then red herring the shit out of everybody else.
Because that's the that's the thought behind the screenwriter, I'm sure, right? If we have a character say, well, you're probably the murderer, then it's not. Then the audience will never think he's going to be the murderer. But
exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And Joe, you're right. The killer should have been sporadic about who they were killing. Like, oh, this part of the table. Now that part of the table. So you never know.
Yeah, like everybody should potentially be at risk in this movie. And there was no threat for any other character until Marie gets nearly killed again.
What you do now is, though, so you kill them in a certain order, but you have, like, you connect the dots from around the table to people, and it makes like a pentagram or something when you connect all of them.
Oh, yeah, there has to be some other order, but it just going around the table is very like, oh, okay.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Instead of going around the table to make it so fucking obvious, yeah, do it sporadically, like, do it all like, random spots, but, like, not random, because when you connect them, it makes a shape of some kind.
Right.
Yeah, I just don't think you can do a pentagram, because then you're remaking the seventh victim.
Sure.
And it's Satanists.
Well, not at this point, though.
True. That movie does come later.
Age order or...
Yeah, just some other connective tissue. Yeah. Or like the people who... I don't know. Yeah, like we needed to have
that you like the least first.
Well, but given that this is like a murder mystery comedy, so we have like the bumbling police officer. Is there such a thing as like the bumbling killer in these movies?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was like, maybe he's meant to be kind of an idiot.
No, I haven't seen. That would be great. I have not seen that.
I would watch that movie. That sounds fun.
There's the bumbling hero.
Well, yeah,
who starts off as like, who's the queer-coded guy who ends up being the hero and gets the girl.
Naturally, yeah.
That's what Cat and the Canary is.
Okay. What I'm hearing is we should have just gone with Cat and the Canary.
That movie is actually, historically speaking, significantly more important than this movie.
There we go.
And
when it becomes available, we'll have you back on and we'll do Cat and the Canary.
I think it is. So it's a weird one. Because until recently, the only thing you could stream was the version that came out in cinemas in the UK, which was the B-cuts of all the scenes. Okay. And a few years ago, MoMA restored it. Oh, the Museum of Modern Art here in New York City. They restored the original theatrical US version, which are the A cuts, and they screened it live, and they had live accompaniment. I went to see it, and because I have seen the movie as many times as I have, I could totally tell the difference in the cuts, and holy shit, is, like, I don't know what happened, but yeah, the A cuts are better.
Oh, interesting. I mean, good that we've got a restored version out there. Okay, so back to the unrestored version of this film that we're talking about. So we do then introduce the rest of the family a second time. So they all parade into Winston's apartment because we want to catch them up. But also Winston is trying to do intel about, who could have done this, who are we finger pointing, and so on. And I will say that as soon as these people enter or re-enter the frame, the movie does liven up a lot.
Oh, yes, because we have, these really fun characters like Marjorie.
Yes,
yeah.
More like these really fun characters. Marjorie. It's just Marjorie.
I think Aunt Jane gets a couple funny moments, but I could have used more of that bitchery.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the other thing is this film could have leaned, I'm not going to say camp because I think we often confusingly use that term now, but just some kind of the snobbery would have been fun to play with a little bit more. Yeah,
well, and we get that a little bit with Jane, where she says something along the lines of this joke is important. Like she's really worried about like social appearances.
And this is where Ginger Rogers shines a little bit too, because that's when she starts to trade barbs.
Oh, he actually tells Marjorie her soul looks like the inside of a vinegar bottle.
And you're right. It's this bitchery back and forth that I want.
And the reason that Marjorie is fun is because she's not just bitchy, but she's also horny. So she's the character that all women and gays are going to enjoy the most. Like when we're introduced to Winston, he says, "At your service." And she immediately goes, "I may take you up on that."
And he does not mean it that way. Yeah.
No.
Okay, so eventually Harold and Thor will also arrive. They're reunited with Marie, and they admit that they got a little pie-eyed after they thought that she was dead, so
potted.
they had gotten
they
drunk.
say potted.
Pod. Yeah.
We went home and got potted.
Wait, is that something different?
I mean, it does mean drunk. I just really liked the term.
Potted.
But also, but that's again, we went home and got potted. They lived together.
Yeah.
This is like, they go everywhere together.
They got drunk and fucked. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And we see their apartment later. We do, because she's staying at their apartment. She's the one sleeping on the couch.
Indeed, yeah. You would never kick the gays out of their own bed. I mean, and just in case you hadn't figured it out, Marjorie even makes a joke at Thor's expense where she says, "I thought I saw you with a blonde the other night." And there's specifically no gender. So it's not, I thought I saw you with a blonde woman. Although back in this time, we wouldn't have said it. We would have just said, "Oh, I saw you with a blonde." The assumption being, I saw you with a woman. But he reassures everyone immediately, "Oh, no, that's not true."
Yeah.
Because homo.
Yeah.
All right, so Winston asks about Uncle Wayne, because this is one of the unaccounted family members. This is where we do get the Yokohama reference. So, folks, if you don't know, that's a Japanese brothel.
Yes, it's specifically the district. But I will add to the Marjorie saying, "Who was the blonde I saw you with the other day?" That does actually come into play. The blonde is the double. Because Ginger Rogers is a blonde. That's who it is. But we're not interpreting it that way.
Right.
We're interpreting it as like he's stepping out on Harold.
Oh, that's too funny, because I just had my gay goggles on, so I was like, no, you obviously wouldn't be with a woman. What are we talking about?
No, yeah, it's the double.
You've got such tunnel vision with that gay stuff, Joe.
It's true, yes.
I mean, I did sell this movie to you as it's like the most overt version of a gay couple you're going to get in the 1930s.
It does play that way.
Yeah, they're called boyfriends in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Winston is really eager to try to get these people to talk or give him something to work with, and all they want to do is talk shit about each other. Like, "Oh, well, I'd cut your neck for, a dime. Oh, well, I'd cut your neck for free." And he's just like, "Fuck you all. I'm going to put you in jail for the night."
So that's the other thing. Again, like that. Like, this person saying, "Oh, well, I cut yours for fun." Like, okay, I need to see more of that antagonism between these people, because I get the inkling of it in this scene, but we don't really get to see these people interact very much because they're fucking locked up in jail for the rest of the movie.
Which is also a plot point that you're like, lawsuit? Hi? These people are rich, you are not.
Well, and he's not even a police officer.
Exactly.
Like, I get that he has a lot of sway, but how does he actually get people arrested because they haven't done anything and he's not a cop?
And they're not material witnesses to anything. No judge would sign that warrant. And that's not just because I work in true crime and can actually tell you that. It's just like, it makes no sense.
Well, maybe back then they did.
No.
Well, you know what? They were kind of following the code, but not really until the government said, do it. So maybe with this, they were like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I don't think so.
There's a couple of references in here that I think are historically specific. So at one point, Winston I think he's trying to intimidate the women by saying, well, the matron is one of the Philadelphia Smiths. And I tried to look this up, and I cannot figure out what it's a reference to.
I agree. I think that's what it was. I could not figure it out either.
I think it might mean that maybe she's involved with the mob because we're referencing Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Is Philadelphia, is that a known mafia hotbed?
I don't know.
I don't know. But I did get a laugh out of this, though, because again, these people do object, to going to jail. And I think it's Dick who's like, this is an outrage. And Winston's reply is, well, so was murder.
Yes. We're all very adamant that murder is not something to be trifled with. We shouldn't be mocking it. But the problem is this is also a comedy mystery, and it does often feel like we are making fun of murder. So I don't know. It feels like the movie should be more self-aware sometimes.
Because quite literally one of the next lines we get is when Phil gets woken up again and it's his uncle being like, come on down, dearie, we've got another corpse.
Yep.
So
Winston's response to this is to check to see if everybody is still in jail, because if someone is missing, then that means that we would be able to account for either who the victim is or who the killer is. And this sequence just goes on way too long for not enough payoff.
I will have your cultural connection here too. So they called the desk sergeant to, be like, hey, like, are all the family members still in jail? And the sergeant's like, hey, buddy, take a look at the 400 and see if they're all there. That, if anyone watches the Gilded Age, you should know what that is. But that's a reference to a famous list compiled by wealthy New York socialite Caroline Astor in 1892 of the 400 most influential people in New York's high society. So the 400 became this slang term for wealthy social elites.
Okay. So that really confirms just how powerful they actually were.
Yes, yeah. These are very important people.
Nice. Okay.
And we could play into their power more. We really don't.
No.
Well, because the rest of the movie we spend with fucking Marie.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so we cut back to the Morgan house, and we do see that there is, in fact, a new body. We don't really ever see this individual, but as we speculated earlier, this is one of the members that was missing, so we think this is Uncle Wayne.
It is weird they don't even say who it is, though, isn't it?
Because he's not important, which is just like, okay, so why do we have so many characters then? Like, make the characters important and then kill them off.
I agree that he's not important because we quite literally never see this person, but it's also like, but you introduced this person to us in that 360 spin earlier, so at least tell us who it is. We have seen this person.
Right, call more attention to it.
Yeah.
But again, they don't even do a good job of telling us that the two people we don't meet because they're dead.
Well, and actually, if it is Wayne, this breaks the killer's MO. We're not going around the table anymore because Wayne was the last person before the 13th chair.
Well, it's because the killer was in jail and didn't get to turn off the switch.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was kind of like we just left this as an open kill to whoever came back and touched this phone first. So it was like Russian roulette of whichever family member we could possibly kill. It was like, well, good luck with that.
I am a little surprised we don't have a scene just of Uncle Wayne showing up at the mansion and being like, hello, is anyone here? I was called to come here. And he picks up the phone and dies.
Get a little coverage here, folks.
Yeah.
So Captain Ryan is there. He does realize, okay, I'm trying to cut this phone cord. And when we manage to do it, that's when the electricity comes back on around the mansion. But he doesn't know where the cord leads. To which I say, does it not lead into a wall? Like, you're going to break it down in a couple of scenes. You can't do that now.
But also, we never get to know where that hidden door is. Where's the hidden... What opens the hidden door?
I wonder if that's a budgetary constraint. Like, they couldn't afford to build a secret door.
Maybe.
I don't know. There were so many low-budget movies like this, and they all gave me a hidden door.
I just want my hidden door, God damn it.
I want my Scooby-Doo door opening.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Okay, so we do scrape this phone receiver, and we discover, it's not rubber. It's actually made of steel, so that's how it's electrocuting people, is that we're just charging it up and frying people when they touch it. To which I'm like, yeah, I kind of think we all knew. Like, I didn't need the explanation. I figured it out.
See, I know we're not doing that here, but I really wanted like this 1313 Dead End Drive, where it's like, hey, maybe we should have like different traps throughout the house, not just the electrified phone. Like, do it with other things.
But that's us not getting to see the house. And that is, again, why it should have been more of an old dark house mystery, where instead of him having everyone at his apartment, he calls everyone to the house.
Right.
Because it is a much more interesting set piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's even like a hint that people know there is a secret room, because at one part we actually saw the lawyer taking books off of the shelf because he's clearly trying to find whatever it is that opens that hidden room. That's why there are books on the floor that Grump will trip over. But again, it doesn't pay off.
No, the house should be a character of its own.
Yeah. Okay, so because we realize that the phone has been left, able to electrocute somebody... It means that anybody who is in jail could still be the killer because they just left it on the whole fucking time. So we run down the suspects list. Winston is like, okay, could be this person, could be this person. When we get to Harold and Thor, as you said earlier, Amanda, he does say, they're all right, which I kind of liked. Winston's open-minded.
Also, but he's wrong.
Well,
he's half wrong.
Yeah. So Marie explains that the night of the original murder, so like when her double was killed, what happened was she hid upstairs after she heard that shot. So that actually was her, as we said earlier. Mm-hmm. And then she was going to leave, but that's when she heard all of the cars, like the police cars showing up. So she ended up hiding in the cellar. And then when they were looking at the body, that's when she stole the captain's car. And Winston figures out that the whole purpose of this was to actually get the letter that she was reading. So we're looking for the code. Whatever was in that letter is what the killer is actually after. So 13, 13, 13.
Which is, by the way, worst.
It's terrible.
Ever. Like, it's like the killer is killing all these people for 13, 13, 13.
It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I was literally going to say it's the equivalent of having your password just be 1, 2, 3, 4.
Amazing. Only an idiot would have that password. That's my password.
Well, and the number of times that they're saying in this movie, like there were 13 guests, and it was 13 years ago, and you're just like, really?
Gee, I wonder if that number is important.
Yeah, like it just. Come on, folks.
But yeah.
So Winston does encourage Marie to keep this to herself. Don't even tell your brother. Don't tell Thor. And then there is this comedic beat where she just immediately tells them, and they call her an idiot.
And she's like, "Oh, don't tell them I told you."
Yep.
Yeah.
Like she is not smart.
No.
So, speaking of dumb, let's jump back to Grump, because he has been the one who's assigned to tail Marjorie. So we do get this. I know it's meant to be comedic. I don't find it particularly funny, but he's so bad at tailing her that she knows, and she's tired of having him follow her because it hurts her neck to crane and look behind her. So she just invites him to ride with her since he's going to have to do it otherwise. And you can tell that she's putting the moves on him because she smacks his ass with her purse when he climbs into her car.
I thought this was amusing. This was okay for me, but it's fine. It's not the bitchy Marjorie that we got to meet in that earlier scene. Like I want to see her like trading barbs.
It just also, we're talking about how Winston said, follow every member of this. And this is the only tale that we see. In a better movie, you would actually see montage. All of these people acting suspiciously. Yeah. And we get a montage and something to help us to say, okay, everyone's acting a little bit.
Right, you have mysterious. Real reason to suspect everyone. I have no reason to suspect Marjorie. I have no reason to suspect Marie. That leaves us with because the aunt and uncle, who are not Marjorie's parents, are never fleshed out enough. You have no reason to suspect them. And because Uncle John looks like petrified David Cronenberg, you're immediately like,
he looks shady.
Yeah.
Well, but see, when I'm watching a mystery, though, I also look for the people that don't have a lot of development, because sometimes it's like, oh, the less you know about someone, then they might be the killer. So I was thinking that for some of the time. But again, I kept going back to, well, I know it's a man, though. I know it's a man. So,
right. Yeah, like there just aren't enough options in this film, and none of them are particularly convincing.
About 13 people.
Yes. Yeah. So speaking of, let's introduce another new character, folks. I feel like at this point we're at about minute 50 of this movie, but let's introduce plastic surgeon Dr. Sherwood, who was played by Crawford Kent. And I'm joking, but this character does actually serve a purpose. So he comes in because he had seen the dead woman. Like he performed the facial construction on her to make her look like Marie. And he says she came in with a man she was calling her brother. So when Winston hears this, he says, let's take you to Harold and see if you can identify him. But Dr. Sherwood takes one look at Harold and says, no, that's not the guy.
Which should immediately clue you into, oh, it's Thor. Like that's the, I think they think that immediately.
Yes. And that's why they have Harold bring the photo of Thor, the beautiful
portrait
bedside portrait he keeps in his bedroom.
Yeah. And I love it, too, because it truly does look like Eddie Phillips. Like, this could be the headshot that he was using to get roles in Hollywood.
And look, there are no straight guys on this podcast, so I can't ask, like, hey, you know what? My fiance is a straight guy. He's in the room. Have you ever kept, like, just a beautiful portrait of another man that you know?
As you do.
He's shaking his head no.
No.
A beautiful portrait.
Like, lightly straight.
Sure. Yeah. So naturally, okay, so we have identified one of the, at this point we think, oh, okay, so Thor is one of the killers. He has been in cahoots doing this, but we don't fully understand
with
why
the
yet.
body double.
But it still doesn't.
Yes.
He brings this girl to this plastic surgeon, has her have surgery to look like Marie.
Yes.
But then what? Like,
What's
why
the
were they?
point?
Yeah. What's the point?
How does this? Right. This is the thing. I don't know how this serves anything.
Well,
Because
and they
he
did this
lives
months
with the
ago.
brother. Yes, and he lives with the brother. So what were they going to do? Kill Marie and replace her with a double?
Yes, so that they could grab the money.
Right,
So
but
I think
the brother would know it wasn't Marie, and they live together.
Wait. But if they're passing off the double as Marie, then no matter what, this double will get the money because it's left to her anyway.
well, no, you would just then take the money, like you would cash
She would
her out
split
and
it
send
with-
her on her way.
Yeah.
Oh.
But then the brother would still know.
I don't think that they're planning it as a long-term thing. Like, they're going to use her to go into the bank, take out the money, and then cash it out 3 ways, and then
just
everybody
run
goes.
off, I
But
guess.
the fact that we have to do all of this speculation is because the movie doesn't explain.
No,
But also,
no,
what
no,
makes
no.
no sense is why does Thor need this money? Because the brother has also been left the money, and these two
Exactly.
are ostensibly married.
Yeah, like, he's sitting pretty. He doesn't need it unless,
No,
like,
exactly.
I even look at this as, oh, is Thor not actually queer then? He's just been hanging around looking for ways, because we also
For
say he's
13
very
years.
fond of Marie.
Yeah, like a brother-in-law.
Okay, so Thor and Barksdale's plan was to have a double for Marie so they could get the money, split it 3 ways, and do whatever the fuck they wanted.
Yes.
But the problem is their plan is foiled because the
There's another killer.
yes, kills the double thinking it's Marie and foils
Yes.
their plan. So
And
okay.
then when we get to the killer, we're going to talk about how that also makes no sense.
Yeah.
But that's at least, like, again, what I just said, that's an interesting movie. I'm
Yeah,
not
exactly
seeing
that.
that in here.
But here, the more interesting idea is maybe the brother and he and even Marie are in on it together, and you do kind of a diabolique where it's
Yeah.
like twist on twist,
Mhm.
that she's doing it intentionally, but then that's making her more of a character and giving her more agency, which this movie doesn't do, and it's also like, but you're right, why does he need this money? He is
Yeah.
sitting pretty.
Because no one has any proper motivations that are fleshed out. So
No.
we don't understand exactly what they're doing, but then also, even when we know, we don't entirely understand why they're doing it.
Okay, Kenneth Branagh needs to stop doing those Agatha Christie movies and just look for really, like, shoddy 30s murder mysteries and just
Ooh.
redo
I know.
those.
I have one that I really want to make called One Body Too Many.
Ooh, okay. Is it to the number 2?
Ooh.
No, it's the number 1. It's like Too Fast, Too Furious. One body, too many.
It's
Jesus.
no, it's a pretty good premise. It doesn't totally work, but the
Mhm.
premise is actually really fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an old Dark House movie.
Also, Lyle
Naturally.
Talbot and Bela Lugosi.
Oh my god, wait, what?
Yeah, 1944, One Body, Too Many.
As I said, I watch a lot of these.
Yeah.
They all blend
It
together.
is just a thing. Oh, I didn't.
They wanted to hire Boris Karloff for the film's key horror
course
role,
they
but
did.
Lugosi was hired instead.
Oh, wow. Ouch.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, come back. We've
Yes,
got to
yes,
finish
yes.
this up. Let's reveal who the actual killer is. So when we discover, okay, it's actually Thor who was with the double, we also hear from Harold, hey, everybody, Marie's not here because she got a phone call from what she calls the naughty sleuth to meet her at the old house at 4:30. So she has gone to meet Winston, or so she believes. And of course, Winston says, I didn't make that call. So now we need to get over there because she's about to be killed. So we get to the house. The killer has realized, hey, the phone's not electrified anymore because we cut that cord. So he has to go out and do it himself. So we see her get abducted. And this is where Winston hears the killer's trademark laugh on the phone because, of course, Marie was on the phone with him at the time.
I think this is shot at least kind of well, though, because she's still on the phone with Winston, but we get that, like, a really good shot of, like, the killer's arm in silhouette as it reaches for her. So that's kind of cool. And then he grabs her and laughs. So, yep,
Yeah.
that's...
I don't mind this movie from this point on because I think it's so streamlined. Like, none of the other family members really matter. So it's really just about getting to Marie before the killer maybe knocks her off. And I mean, I wish it was a little bit easier to see because unfortunately, when the killer drags her into this dark room and then what will eventually be revealed to be a trapdoor into a cellar or like where the safe is being kept, it is so dark. It's really hard to see what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is why we need it to be remastered.
Yeah. We should also note that when Thor gets identified as involved in this case in some capacity, he and Harold do have a bit of a cat fight and they get separated. But this is more or less the last that we're going to see of these characters.
So
it's like it's not a good payoff.
No.
So are Thor's actions like criminal offenses? Like, is he going to jail for this? Because, I mean...
I guess?
But he hasn't done anything except for...
He got a girl to get plastic surgery.
Yeah. Like, he hasn't done anything. And murder was never part... I mean, I guess you could, like, not embezzlement, but, like, I don't know.
Yeah, they were planning to commit fraud, identity theft.
Yeah, they were planning on it, but they never actually did it.
They never got there because she got killed.
Yeah.
So I guess it would just be intent. So conspiracy.
Conspiracy. Oh,
there we go.
Yeah. But you know, that's probably like some community service.
It would be a much shorter sentence than...
Right. And presumably Harold would pay to get his boyfriend out of jail.
Presumably.
Unless he's like, fuck you, motherfucker. You were going to take all that money from my sister.
Yeah. That relationship might be doomed.
Yeah, it might be over. Okay, so this is when we need to figure out exactly where Marie has been taken. So we're looking around the house because we know that she was here when we called and then she was abducted. But we're worried that she might already be murdered. And then we hear the scream. So we have to figure out where the scream is coming from. And we get this exciting sequence where the killer is essentially throttling her, demanding to know the code. And she is about to die. So she gives it up.
Like 13, oh my God, go away!
And the police have heard the scream. So they're figuring out, okay, we need to bust through this wall. I really like the shot of them all rushing through the kind of gap and coming into the room because I do think that that's kind of exciting looking. We managed to pry open this cellar door, and Marie, because she has given the killer what he wants, he's just left her to try to open the safe. So she flees upstairs. She faints into Winston's arms. Okay.
Just like faints, of course.
Did you see that he non-consensually kisses her after she faints?
Oh, does he?
Oh, I missed that. Oh my God. Winston.
I do kind of love that there isn't a particularly exciting showdown with this killer, though. Like, it's not a Scooby-Doo unmasking. It's very much just, okay, I guess you were trying to break into this safe, and we just take off the mask, and oh, there you are. It's Uncle Adams.
It's done so matter-of-factly. There's not a villain monologue. There's I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling doubles.
There we go.
I'm not joking, y'all. The first time I watched this, I rewound the last 10 minutes 3 times because I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What? Like, and not because I was like, well, this is bizarre. I was just so confused. I was like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, because if you recognize Uncle Adams, then you think, okay, I guess that makes sense. And it's the person that Marie actually fingered originally. But then you're waiting for some kind of explanation about why he was doing this or if he understood what Thor and Barksdale were doing. And we don't ever get that because we just cut directly to Captain Ryan.
Yes.
And Captain Brown inferring, okay, well, we're going to electrocute you. Ha ha. Like, isn't this a funny irony that you were killing people doing the same way we might kill you? And you're just like, no, wait, where's the explanation? Where's the motivation?
Yeah, what's the why? And also, does his murder spree make sense?
No.
Well, I think it's supposed to be understood that his motive is just, he wants the money. But
sure, but how does killing these people get you that? Was it he was going to kill all of them because then he would be the last one to inherit? Like, surely there's a faster way than killing 12 other people.
It's a vault. It's a vault that has the money. So it's not like if you find it and open it and you take it, no one's going to know you took it.
That's true. I guess, because I've been thinking, because he's killing people down like the inheritance line. But that's not what's happening here.
The will was, the will was already paid out.
Right. But maybe he didn't know that because, as you'll remember, inside the vault is, yes. So we learned that Marie has inherited $1 million from the security deposit box, but also there's a letter from her father saying, you know, I hope that enough time has passed that most of these other motherfuckers are dead because they're terrible. And I was doing this to protect you. So clearly he knew that someone like Uncle Adams was going to try to do something for the money.
Which is why we needed to establish these people as truly horrible better. And not just bitchy, like actually horrible. But no, Harold does talk about what the will was, because he said that the will provided for him, his mother, and his sister.
This must be extra money that they all knew was either hidden or something. I don't know.
That, right, could be accessed on her 21st birthday. But again, if it's a vault, which for some reason Uncle Adams already knows where the vault is, again, back to we really should have explored this house more.
Yeah.
Because no one knows these hidden passageways, and clearly Marie and Harold grew up in this house.
Right. Yeah.
So why does Uncle Adams know the hidden passageways and they don't, which would go to like, oh, maybe it's the Morgan household. His last name is Adams. So he's not even the younger brother of Father Morgan.
Yeah.
They have different last names. So it's not like they grew up in this house together. He's probably a brother-in-law.
This is bad. It's just really badly done.
But wait, the biggest thing for me, the biggest issue I have with this ending is when she says, Marie, I was the 13th guest all along. There were quite literally 12 people there, and you were one of those 12.
Including you. You were the 12th
then?
guest,
like,
dum-dum.
What does this mean?
It doesn't, because that still makes me wonder who was the person who didn't show up.
Exactly. And this is the thing that everyone always acknowledges about this movie. Like, even when you read casual Letterboxd or Amazon reviews, people will say, but what was the deal with the 13th guest?
Yeah.
Because that never gets explained. It doesn't get paid off at all.
No, it doesn't.
Which you could say, oh, maybe it was a misdirect, but
No.
To echo both of you, it's just bad writing. Which does make me want to read the book a little bit just to see, like, did they skim the book and just pull out some pages? Or, like, what were they doing here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so we've got a couple of last funny things to talk about. So this whole time, we've not talked about how Grump has been missing from all of this police investigation, and that's because he has been off fucking Marjorie, as evidenced by the fact that he is wearing his shoes on the wrong feet. Well, you told me to tailor. Is that a reference to anal sex?
Well, he got some tail. I said tail her, not get her tail.
There we go. Yeah. So, oh, Grump. You know, I could actually see this with a laugh track and just uproarious canned laughter, because that is how funny the movie thinks it is. It's bad.
Boy.
Okay, so we fade in on the same ringing phone setup in Winston's apartment. So this is our end of film. We're just recreating his introduction, only this time it is Marie on the couch. So he has brainwashed her, I guess. But she ends up replicating the time of the gong joke when Captain Ryan calls because he's got a new murder, presumably. Only this time Winston leaves the phone off the hook.
I wonder if this was supposed to be, like, do you think that they meant for this to kind of be the lead-in to a series?
A sequel, a series?
I do.
Yeah.
Because Winston arguably has the best characterization in the film because he's given the most to work with. And so, I feel like, these are all like, okay, we're going to use these in future sequels for this type of thing.
Yeah, I think they wanted him to be a thin man.
I think so too. I don't think Marie would come back, but I think he and Captain Ryan would have continuing adventures. And it, like, this to me reads as James Bond will return.
Yes. Well, and what's really interesting, so the year after this, in 1933, a movie comes out that's also directed by Albert Ray that has the exact same writers as this movie, called A Shriek in the Night, and it stars Ginger Rogers and Lyle Talbot, but it's not the same studio. It's a different studio called Allied.
That's on my list.
It's a pre-code mystery crime film with romance, and it says two rival journalists investigate the murder of a wealthy philanthropist who fell from the balcony of his penthouse apartment. The initial murder is followed by an entire series of murders where they're killed by strangulation. So,
okay.
I don't know. I thought, okay, maybe this was like a studio thing where it's like, okay, we're just like getting all these people together in a room, so we'll just film these back to back. But it was a separate studio, so that wasn't the case. We just carried this over the next year.
I guess they liked the chemistry between the actors, or they thought they could capitalize on this, because you did say that this found financial success. So maybe they said, oh, we moved it over, and then we're trying to cash in on people's love of the other film.
Entirely possible. And Trick of the Night, by the way, is 66 minutes long.
Ooh.
Wow.
Hot 2 minutes shorter.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But yeah, so this movie is, it just ends.
It's just done. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Oh, boy. Well, all right, everyone. Well, that is the 13th Guest. Amanda, I mean, final thoughts on this film. And thank you for introducing us to this thing.
Yeah, it is. It's not a good movie. It is not.
There we go.
It isn't. You know, it's weird. It's interesting. I wouldn't even say it's good for its genre or time period. There's so many others from the exact same time period that are significantly better. I'd even say, I'm forgetting if Secret of the Blue Room or Murder in the Blue Room is the 30s or 40s one, but those are both better, and they have actually pretty different plots, despite coming from the same source material. And then There Were None is a better movie. The Cat and the Canary, you've already done. Old Dark House, of course, the first Thin Man and the entire Thin Man series. There's even the Kennel Club murder mystery with also William Powell playing a different detective. They're all better.
Okay.
The Penguin Pool murder mystery and all the things that follow that lady, love those wild pre-code murder mysteries.
Well, I will say, I'm actually glad that you picked this, though, because I feel like, I mean, if I'm ever going back and watching older films, like, they're usually, like, the classics, right? Mm-hmm. And so I can't honestly say if I've ever seen, like, or at least seen many, like, genuinely, like, not good older films. So this is actually, this was a good learning experience for me to be like, again, like, I'm watching it that first time, like, is this bad or is this just old and I'm not getting it? And I was happy to have your validation.
No, yeah, it is. I do sit at home. I make lists of these movies. I go down these rabbit holes of, ooh, this is in that genre, and this is tertiary to this genre, and this kind of does something else in the genre, and I watch them all. So yeah, no, this is not a great example of the genre of filmmaking of the time period. It's obviously very cheap. And that is, you know, they made so many movies so fast so that you do see a lot of things where that's the issue, where it's just like they're churning them out like butter. Right. But obviously what's interesting here is the brother and, you know, his friend, just a friend. Totally just a friend. Just a friend.
No, I definitely appreciate seeing a more candid pre-code depiction of queerness where we're more or less saying the quiet part out loud. But I will also agree. I mean, I think there's value in watching movies that aren't classics, that aren't great, not just to be like, oh, okay, I didn't know that they made bad older movies, but also because sometimes you can have really interesting conversations about why a movie isn't working. And I think one of the big things is, like, did we tear this film a new one? Absolutely. But in part, it turns out this way because of the conditions under which it was made, where people didn't show it a lot of love because we just needed to make a fucking movie for cheap. And as you said, Amanda, there's definitely better versions that you could watch. But this is maybe also representative of what a lot of folks in 1932 were probably seeing up on the big screen. Some of them were great. And I'm willing to bet a lot of them were just like this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. When I go through to make my cheat sheet, I'm like, okay, well, like, what are some familiar roles this actor's been in? And it's like, oh, they've been in 300 movies in the span of 15 years.
Yes.
Like, they were booked and busy.
like honestly, it feels like an office job almost. They walk in, they do their part, they leave, and it's like, oh, next day, oh, hey, different movie, let's go.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, before we announce what we're covering next week, Amanda, let everyone know, where can they find you on social media, and tell us about Perfectly Good Moment.
Yeah. Okay, so I am on, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Amanda Jane Stern. But my movie, Perfectly Good Moment, just came out. You can watch it for free with ads on Tubi, or you can rent or buy it on Amazon. It is a psychosexual revenge thriller about a couple that's been on and off together for 8 years. When they met, she was 19 and he was 34, and it's 8 years later. And she's back with more than a reunion in mind.
Now, you say it's on
Nice.
Tubi. Is it color corrected on Tubi?
Just the color that our colorist did.
The appropriate color is
The
what we're saying.
appropriate it's not a black and white movie that they added some, I don't know what that was to.
Teeth. Ugh.
I'm telling you, it's horrifying.
It is. I scrubbed through it. It was one of the most terrifying things I ever looked at.
Okay, well, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. If you want to chat with other listeners, join our Facebook Horror Queers group. If you want to show us some love, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want even more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. If you subscribe today, you will get 343 and a half hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on Hannibal Season 1, Episode 11, Time Cut, Heretic, Smile 2, and a brand new audio commentary on Silent Night, Deadly Night for its 40th anniversary.
Ooh, there we go.
Joe?
Yes?
What are we talking about next week?
Well, we're going to go quite a bit more contemporary, but we're going to try to do a bit of a tie-in because Mark Duplass and Patrick Bryce are back with Joseph, or whatever we're calling him, in the Creep tapes. So we thought, you know what? We should check out that second Creep film. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, everyone, if you've never seen Creep 1, watch it. Both of these movies are actually really, really, really good. But if you just want to skip to Creep 2, honestly, you're fine. I think you could watch Creep 2 as a standalone and it works by itself.
You could. And if you want the primer on the first one, but you don't want to watch the movie, you could just listen to our episode on it too.
Oh my God, Joe, you're going to hate. I forgot we even had an episode on Creep.
Yes, we do. Yep.
Oh boy. Well, okay, that's going to be released. I love Creep 2. I'm excited to see that. And Mark Duplass's penis, because he goes full frontal in that movie.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
All right, everyone. Well, until next week, we can cross out the 13th guest.
Who was the 13th guest?
Oh, God.
We will never know. And cross out Horror Queers.